President Joe Biden has praised the United States' strides in tackling the climate crisis during his presidency, while sharply criticizing Donald Trump for downplaying the threat that global warming poses to future generations.
Clean energy jobs are growing twice as fast as the economy overall. Clean energy workers to join unions at the highest level in history. And I'm really proud to have launched the American Climate Corps, patterned after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, to put tens of thousands of young people on the path to good-paying, clean energy jobs to improve our environment and grow our economy. And you know, the United States has reasserted America's position as a global leader in climate. We're leading an all-out effort to partner with nations to reduce global emissions, to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
The US president spoke at a Bloomberg event on Tuesday, part of Climate Week in New York, which coincides with the United Nations General Assembly, where Biden had also delivered remarks earlier in the day. Climate Week has already highlighted urgent concerns that the transition away from fossil fuels is happening too slowly. On Tuesday, the UN's top climate official emphasized the need for renewable energy to spread more rapidly from wealthy nations to developing countries. Biden stated that when he took office, virtually nothing had been done to combat climate change, but his administration's policies changed the mindset by reframing the crisis as an opportunity to create new jobs in clean energy industries. "We passed the most significant climate law in world history," Biden said, referring to the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. "People said it couldn't be done, but we got it done, and not a single Republican voted for it." Biden said since the bill's passage, more than 330,000 jobs have been created and tens of billions of dollars in investments have flowed into electric vehicle, battery and renewable energy manufacturing across the country. This, he said, has allowed the US to reassert global leadership on climate change. Biden contrasted this progress with the approach of his predecessor, Trump. He says he'd repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, shut down our factories and push the world backward, Biden said. His denial of climate change dooms future generations to a more dangerous world. Addressing the baseless conspiracy theories spread by Trump, Biden added, "And by the way, windmills do not cause cancer." The president asserted that the US is now in a leading position to guide global efforts to tackle the climate crisis. "The world looks to us," he said. "If we don't lead, who will? Who fills the void? That's both our responsibility and our incredible opportunity." In recent years, the global community has recognized climate change as an existential threat, yet the responses from different regions vary significantly. While European nations have been at the forefront of aggressive climate action, the United States, in reality, has lagged behind in many key areas, highlighting a growing divide in how seriously the climate crisis is being addressed. Europe has long been a leader in environmental policies and sustainable initiatives. The European Union has set ambitious targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, increasing the use of renewable energy, and implementing more stringent environmental regulations. In 2019, the EU launched the European Green Deal, a comprehensive plan to make Europe the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. This framework seeks to decarbonize industry, promote energy efficiency, and shift towards a circular economy, all while creating green jobs and stimulating sustainable growth. Countries like Germany, Denmark, and Sweden are already proving that a low-carbon future is achievable. Germany has phased out coal plants and increased its reliance on wind and solar power. Sweden, aiming for net zero emissions by 2045, is pushing for electrified transportation and expanding renewable energy production. These nations have also integrated climate education into their school curricula, fostering a culture that prioritizes sustainability from a young age. In contrast, the United States has struggled to develop a unified long-term strategy for addressing climate change. And while President Biden has championed landmark climate policies, such as the Inflation Reduction Act, much of the country's approach has been reactive rather than proactive. The IRA, which aims to boost clean energy, reduce carbon emissions and create green jobs, represents the most significant climate legislation in US history. Yet, The bill's passage was hard-fought, with no Republican support, illustrating the deep political divide over climate action in America. At the federal level, climate progress has often been hampered by political gridlock, fossil fuel lobbying, and legal battles. The disgraced former President Donald Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord in 2017 symbolized America's wavering commitment to international climate efforts. Though Biden has since rejoined the accord, despite this, there remains significant resistance from within the country, particularly from conservative lawmakers and industries reliant on fossil fuels, who argue that stricter environmental regulations would harm the economy. That is simply false. Culturally, there is a stark difference on how climate change is perceived in Europe versus the United States. You see, in many European countries, climate change is viewed as a crisis that demands immediate and comprehensive action. Green parties have gained significant political influence across Europe, pushing governments to prioritize sustainability. Public transportation networks in major cities have been expanded to reduce reliance on cars, and countries like France and the Netherlands have made bold moves towards banning the sale of gasoline-powered vehicles by 2035. In the United States, public opinion is more fragmented. While a majority of Americans acknowledge the reality of climate change, there is less urgency about addressing it. Many Americans are reluctant to adopt lifestyle changes, such as driving less or eating less meat, things that could significantly reduce their carbon footprint. Additionally, misinformation and climate skepticism are far more widespread, particularly in Republican media outlets, which continue to downplay the severity of the crisis. The climate crisis requires a global response, but the gap between Europe's proactive measures and America's more tepid approach is widening. As European nations continue to advance their climate goals, the US risks being left behind, not only in mitigating climate change, but also in seizing the economic opportunities of a green future. For the US to fully confront the climate emergency, it will need stronger political will, public consensus, collective responsibility, and a commitment to transformative change on a par with its European counterparts. Now, corporate America has a critical role to play in reducing carbon emissions and combating climate change. It's not just down to the individual. To stem significant emissions, companies must adopt sustainable practices right across their operations, such as investing in renewable energy sources such as solar and wind and geothermal to power their facilities, partnering with clean energy providers and installing on-site renewable infrastructure that could drastically cut energy-related emissions. Transportation is a major source of emissions, and companies can switch to electric vehicles for their fleets. They can encourage employees to use EVs by installing charging stations at their offices. They can reduce emissions in supply chains. It's essential for corporations to work with suppliers to ensure sustainable sourcing, minimizing waste, promoting energy efficiency in the production and distribution of goods, implementing circular business models focusing on recycling, reuse, and product life cycle extension can significantly reduce extraction of resources and waste, limiting emissions. And companies should set science-based emissions reduction targets and report progress transparently, holding themselves accountable to ambitious goals, which encourages innovation and ensures long-term sustainability. By taking these steps, corporate America can lead the transition to a low-carbon economy and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Failure to address it will have profound consequences for Americans. Rising temperatures will intensify extreme weather events like hurricanes, wildfires, and heat waves, leading to loss of homes, livelihoods, and lives. Coastal communities face severe flooding from sea level rises, while droughts will threaten water supplies and agriculture, driving up food prices and causing shortages. Public health will also be impacted with increased respiratory illnesses, heat-related deaths, and the spread of disease. Economically, the costs of disaster recovery and infrastructure damage will burden taxpayers, while Missed opportunities in the green economy could slow job creation and innovation in clean industries. And then there's climate migration, which will strain America's resources as displaced populations, both domestic and international, move to escape rising sea levels, droughts and extreme weather. This influx can overwhelm infrastructure and housing and social services, while also fueling political tensions and economic disparities in regions absorbing large numbers of climate refugees, dwarfing the number of current asylum seekers or economic migrants at our southern border. The disgraced former president, Donald Trump, doesn't understand climate change, nor will he be around to see the full effect of it. Vice President Kamala Harris recognizes the danger and is the only political candidate making a case for it. I'm Anthony Davis. You can catch me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.